On Zoom, any public comments? We had the Zoom was unplugged, so it took a little bit to get going, but I believe it's working now. Okay, moving on, minutes. So we have minutes from February 5th and February 9th.
Motion to approve.
Do it the second.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meet with county engineer. Good morning, Dwayne. Can you unmute yourself?
Good morning, supervisors. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Outstanding. I've been down in my basement cubby hole the last handful of days because my wife doesn't want me up in the house where the grandkids run around.
That's smart lady.
So you're feeling better?
I went to the doctor Saturday and they gave me some medicine that should be kicking in here. It seems to be quite a bit better. I can string 3 or 4 words together without breaking out coughing. Spoke or communicated with Billy and Thomas. Things are going fairly smooth. We're putting rock on the roads while we have decent weather. It looks like we've got this week to get some of the roads passable in decent condition. And then we are putting together our contract rock program for spring. Hopefully we'll have that for you guys to look at next week. Other than that, we've got some brush clearing to do this winter around the tank car projects that we will be working on this summer. And the 110th Street project right now, I've got kicked back to the July letting because they're not sure when we're going to have funding, and the DOT is getting mad at me for kicking it back every month. So we can bring it forward if funding comes through quicker than expected. Other than that, I don't have a whole heck of a lot to talk about.
Okay, you're moving on. Any questions or comments for Dwayne?
Yeah, Dwayne, that's when you were talking about the DOT, you kind of broke up a little bit. Could you just tell that again, say that again for me?
To be in the DOT gets testy if I just keep kicking the project back every month that the funding doesn't get approved, because they try to schedule their staff hours, and if everybody just kept moving things back, it really mess up with their way they do business.
So does that mean then that because, and obviously you don't know, because does that mean then that the project is on hold indefinitely, or?
Well, they're hoping for progress in March, but they also haven't given me a firm time. So once the project is funded from Congress, it has to go through the Federal Highways, FHWA, and the DOT, Iowa DOT, to write the grant award and funding agreement. And I don't have an idea how long that's going to take, but I'm pretty sure it's not instant.
Right.
So best case, if that's a 30-day process, that puts us getting into the DOT's paperwork in April, and a 2-month lag. The best we could hope for is June, but I think July is more safe.
Okay.
And
all right. I thought that's what you were saying, but I didn't catch it all.
Yeah.
And I communicated with Dwayne Friday about last week at ISAC at the supervisors meeting. Senator Shipley from Adams County has a bill in there about the,
Be still my heart.
Two of them? There's
Yes.
two of them? Sorry.
he has a bill in there about the railroads and how they're not taking care of the crossings. And so there is a hearing March 7th, and I asked Dwayne if he'd be willing to go because he's looking for some county engineers along the railroad line to go.
Oh, okay.
And Dwayne said it'd fit his schedule, and I think it'd be good for him to be there because Senator Shipley knows it's an uphill battle that he's trying to bring awareness to the poor crossing, and it's throughout the state. It's an issue for everybody in this room. Whether the crossing's blocked or if the crossing's bad, so. And he ideally would like to get crossbars at all the crossings, but the cost is prohibitive to do that, so we'll see if it goes anywhere. But at least he's trying,
Right.
so that's what that's about. Okay, let's move on.
I noticed in my emails this weekend, I received an email from the BNSF Railroad about a grant program where we can apply for rail crossing, at-grade rail crossing elimination. So there's money available to build bridges or underpasses.
How about if they just get money to repair the crossing?
I know,
I would think that'd be less expensive, but
Yeah.
and I bet that came from, because the senator also discussed that in his communication with BNSF, they said, oh, we have all this budget for that topic, and he said, well, we never see of any of it in Iowa, so I bet that's how that happened, Dwayne. So,
look
yeah,
into that and see what's involved. But I don't know if it's a very good fit. It would be nice if they would repair the one overpass we've got on Nutmeg.
yep.
It takes far to drive under that.
And don't hold your breath on that one.
All right, thank you. All right. 2, discuss and consider resolution authorizing the engineer on behalf of the Board of Supervisors for construction projects. So this is, be it resolved by Jefferson County Board of Supervisors that Dwayne Hines, the county engineer of Jefferson County, Iowa, is hereby designated, authorized, and empowered on behalf of the Board of Supervisors of said county to execute this certification of completion of work and final acceptance thereof in accordance with plans and specifications in connection with all farm to market and federal or state aid construction projects in this county.
And motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. Meet with ambulance director. Morning, Brian.
Good morning, Supervisor. How are you?
And we're happy because we reached agreement with the hospital Monday
Yes, ma'am.
on the transfer agreement. So,
Good
yeah.
morning. As of February, from the February, we've done 37 calls. We've done 205 calls for the year of 2024, 637 total. Of those for this year, 35% have been private insurance, 18% have been Medicare, 15% self-pay, and 1% is Medicaid. Of the 637 calls so far, 501 have been billable so far. We've been 120 days in operation. Net deposits for this year have been $17,009. So far this year, we've done 34 transports for the hospital. out of the deposition for the rigs, we've done 107 for Adam 51, 95 for Adam 52, and Rescue 17 is done 3. So far, we're pretty much fully staffed. I have a person that's still on maternity leave that is coming back in March. And Adam 52 is going to be in the shop with front end, as we discussed, on the 15th of February at 8 o'clock. Hospital's been notified. That's about it. Any other questions? We did have the hospital agreement that we had signed, so we're still going through that with the billing company.
How's that going as far as getting the invoice to them?
Well, we have to see what the insurance is paying first. We gotta see what's billable according to that. It's not really spelled out too much in black and white as it has been before. The billing company's legal team looked at that, and they're finding it hard to see what the hospitals are responsible for.
Have they done this? I mean, this should
Yes.
be pretty routine for them.
Well, it's about Medicare A patients and whether or not their secondary insurance is going to pay.
But I thought Medicare wasn't an issue, because that's just.
Well, it's the secondary part that they're looking at, and they have to send out all the bills to Medicare. Whatever's a receivable back, then we bill the hospital for the rest. So that's what we're waiting.
But it's my understanding Medicare A is inpatient only.
That's correct. But
Right.
their supplementary insurance will cover either A, B, C, D, way to Z.
So are we talking the transfer, like the patient that goes from inpatient up to Iowa City for test and back to inpatient?
Right, we have not done a call for that.
Okay, so we're talking about outpatients, which are ER patients for the most part.
Right, we're talking both the outpatients and the inpatients.
Because Medicare A is just inpatient, it's not ER.
Correct, but their supplementary could cover Medicare Part B. So
Right.
that's what they're trying to find out.
Okay.
As far as the self-pays go, we've had a phenomenal response of people paying their bills. So
That's great.
25% of patients that we have billed personally have paid, which is really good. So right now we're just waiting for the billing company to get back. And as far as the billable call, waiting for that to come back in so we can do a proper invoice.
Okay.
We don't do it here, but you can do video reports or whatever. I'm just get confused is the right word or not, but what is it that we're actually asking the hospital to pay? What?
It's the amounts we saw previously.
No, I didn't ask that right. So, I mean, I understand Medicare A and I understand that it only pays for hospital. Are we asking the hospital then to transfer those patients? And have they agreed to that? Or is that strictly, I don't want to say a bad debt, but what would be considered a self-pay?
Patients that don't have any insurance or any insurance identified.
So Medicare A would be a self-pay?
No. As far as self-pay go, we only had 6 out of the 80.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I think there's confusion here because there is Medicare Advantage and a secondary payer, or primary payer. Under Medicare Advantage is an insurance company, so like Humana, Aetna.
Right, Humana Gold, UHC.
Right, anybody that has a Medicare Advantage, the insurance company is the primary payer.
Correct.
But Medicare A is just strictly, I have Medicare A and B, but if I only had Medicare A, it only pays in hospital stays.
Right.
What I'm asking is that when the hospital says, we're going to transfer Lee out, he only has Medicare A, but we need to transfer him to the U. Am I responsible, the patient, or is the hospital? That's what I want to know the answer to.
The patient is responsible.
Okay.
But if it's a case of patients inpatient and they need a test, Iowa City that the hospital doesn't provide, then the hospital picks that up
Right.
and then they
Okay.
go back to inpatient. They don't
Right.
stay on
Right.
there.
Now, they will also pay for people being transported back to the nursing home.
Right.
And out of all those calls, the 84 transports we've done 7. But as I stated before, we sent all those Medicare forms out to bill Medicare, so we cannot charge the hospital for those runs we've already done.
And that's fine. I just wanted clarification on,
Right.
because on one level, I feel like we're doing the hospital a favor. Obviously, it's about the patient, but secondarily speaking, that frees up a bed space, and, you know, and if the patient needs a higher level of care than they can receive here, it's not an indictment of the hospital. I'm just simply saying is that, but I understand by the same token, that's just one of those gray areas or don't at all.
It was the same dollar amounts that you saw previously.
Right, no, it wasn't the dollar amounts that I was wondering. What I was wondering was, what is it that this contract actually is for? And basically, it's the nursing homes and the inpatient. It doesn't cover
It's
anything
for
else.
it's for the testing if they have to go out to their special.
Right, but that's what I'm
procedures.
saying. It
Right.
doesn't cover anything else. It's
That's
just,
correct.
they have to go out and come back. Then the hospital covers the cost of that
That is
transportation.
correct.
Is that loaded miles? In other words, that's both ways?
That is loaded miles, sir.
So if we're going to the U and coming
Right.
back, that's 140
It'd be at
loaded
the-
miles.
It would be at the negotiated rate of $70 a mile, and say for instance in the ALS run,
Right.
then
Okay.
it's $700 base rate. But that $700 base rate is only charged once. The mileage is charged both ways.
Well, yeah, because they're loaded. Okay,
Correct.
that's fine. Yeah.
How soon do you anticipate having enough of the information done to build them?
Hopefully this week, if
Oh,
if
good.
there's a bill at all,
Okay.
out of what they determine.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else?
Not from my end, no.
No.
No, I'm good unless you're going to discuss the scheduling now.
If you want to. go
Okay.
for it.
And so we asked, at the request of the board, I went out on Friday afternoon and talked with Brian and said, we want to see what the 24-16 schedule looks like. This is Washington County's, by the way, and I just printed it off. And while they were working on that, I was running a lot of numbers as well, like Saturday and Sunday both. To kind of put things in perspective, but I'll let them talk about the scheduling and then we'll go from there.
Would you like to? Okay, where do you want to start?
Oh, and by the way, this schedule that I handed to you, this Washington schedule, if you notice, that's one rig.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and you can see that in the schedule, and to put that in perspective, this is one of the reasons why Washington Board of Supervisors voted to pay double time on the overtime, because they can't fill.
Mhm.
But that schedule that you're seeing there is just strictly for one rig. I'm not saying they don't double that schedule up. I'm not saying they're not running 2 rigs. I'm just simply saying that schedule that we're looking at
Right.
is for one rig.
Mhm. And that's good, just to see a template.
Well, as you know, currently we do a 24/48, and we do it with less people. And out of all the people that we have that are full-time, only 10 of them take the insurance. Okay, which as we know, the insurance is.
Hey, Brian, what particular reasons are we not taking the insurance?
Some of them don't want it,
Right.
or
For-
that's the only ones that we
For
have.
me, I have TRICARE, being military, so I want to take the full insurance, and some people are probably by their
This is for
spouses.
staff
Yeah,
only.
I just.
This
wondered.
doesn't
I just
include
wondered.
us. That's only for staff of what we're currently doing. Going to a 24/16 rotation is gonna require us to hire anywhere from 6 to 8 more full-time staff members.
How many full-times do you have now?
Right now, we have 13. We're gonna need to
Really?
go
I
up
thought you
to,
guys had hired quite a few.
we do,
You
we
had
have
some
quite a
drop off?
few. We have a lot of PRN and part-time help that is filling in those holes
Mhm.
so that the full-time staff members are not getting more than their 8 hours per week
Yeah.
of overtime as much as possible.
Stop right there for just a second, if I can interrupt you. For folks that might, or whatever you want to call it, or others. There was, in some instances, a misunderstanding about the hours of overtime. So an individual, be it a medic or an EMT, their overtime amounts to 8 hours a week. It's not 48 hours a week.
Right.
So I just want to make that clarification. Okay,
So,
Chief, I'm sorry.
So right now, we only have to have 4 people per day on truck. We go to a 24/16, you're looking at pretty much 6 days a week. We're gonna need 6 people per day to fill 2 trucks.
okay, so I just want to make sure I heard this correctly. We currently have how many full-time?
4, currently right now, full-time,
13,
13.
and it would take 6 to 8 more.
That's
Yes,
correct. And we have 13 part-timers in PRN.
yes, that are filling those holes and gaps. And then Brian and myself are filling rigs.
Yeah,
We're
we
doing
appreciate
anywhere
that.
from
Thank you.
48 to 60 hours a week.
Okay.
I think the lowest we've had recently is 36 hours on a truck, plus doing office time
Thank you.
and going, and working on
Thank you.
weekends. And, I work anywhere from my 40 hours to 96 hours a week in that base. Just making sure that the trucks are running, taking extra calls if we need to, scheduling all kinds of stuff, helping with as much as I can with the billing. Like we discussed before, I'm still researching to go in-house billing because it's going to save us money. But that's probably for a different topic. But we are looking at if we go to a 24/16 rotation, like I said, it's 6 to 8 more full-time people, and that's going to be more on the paramedic side. It's going to increase our insurance. So, we're looking at 16 people on insurance to 18 people on insurance in a year versus the 10 that we have now.
Correct.
And that number of 10 does not include Brian and I being on insurance. I don't take the health insurance and neither does Brian.
Right.
But that's just for staff.
But you have insurance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I eventually probably will have to take county insurance, but
Sure.
I may.
Okay. Thanks.
So
So just for clarification, also, I sit down. Because there's always the possibility, so we say, okay, we run 3 8-hour shifts. All right, so that requires, and I'm not saying that we have to have 12 new people, I'm saying that it requires 12 crew slots for every 24-hour period. As opposed to 4. In other words, we got to fill 12 slots every 24 hours for an 8-hour shift. If we run 2 12s, then it requires 8 crew members. And it could be the same crew members. What I'm saying is that that's how many slots we have to fill on a daily basis, on a 24-hour basis. With 24, obviously, as she explained, it's 4. And if we go to a 24/16, and you can see it on Washington's, it requires 20 slots to be filled. 10 EMTs and 10 medics.
And just knowing
one
from
rig.
past experience of this 2016 and talking to people who used to work for when I was at Midwest and CARE's the one who tried this as well. Some of their employees, they like Washington, they do a 24/16. However, if their PRN or part-time people do not pick up shifts, their full-time people are mandated.
Right.
So if they say they've already worked their 40 hours, there's a 24-hour shift, you go on a list, your full-time people go on a list, and we'll say that you start with Joe, Jill, and they go down the line. It's Jill's turn to take that. She's already got her 40 hours. There's 24 hours that has to be open. Now she's mandated. She has to work that rig for 24 hours. And that's double time. We don't have to run into that situation
Right.
here.
Right.
It does take me a while to do scheduling because I send out an email. I have staff here who can verify. I send out an email all the time, monthly. Say, give me your hours, PRN people, I'm working on the schedule. I take my PRN people like Martha. She only works 1 day a week for me. She works every Monday. I have others that work only Wednesdays. My full-timers don't have like a really set schedule because I fill the full-time staff around what my PRN people can do. So we don't accrue overtime more than what they're guaranteed at their 8.
So how many hours of overtime are we having now a week?
It's
And we're
their normal 8
8.
hours right now
Right.
So
for the EMT
eight per,
full-time member.
8 times 4 for a day.
And that varies depending on how their shift falls. So it's probably.
No,
We're
there's
looking
not.
at about 3 days a week that we have people in overtime.
You don't have 4 people, 8 hours a day. You
Correct.
have about 3 days a week
Yeah,
that you have overtime. The
That's
other
correct.
4 days a week is straight time.
That's
Yes.
right.
And I know many of you weren't here at that last department head meeting, but Chauncey did a really good job of explaining to the people that were here that we basically have 4 different kinds of employees in the county. We're not a business where everybody does the same thing.
Mhm.
And, you guys work 24/7,
Correct.
same as the sheriff's office does. So that, they have the Garcia Act. You guys are unique. We have office positions, which are pretty much daytime hours, no weekends, no holidays.
And roads grow.
And then the road crew, which depends if there's a major snowstorm or not, So we have very different positions in the county, which most businesses don't, so we have unique scheduling challenges.
So I want to bring up a point
No, I
too.
just made this.
There's been a lot of discussion, and I think a lot of it was misinterpreted or whatever. I'm not sure that's the proper terminology, but and I'm not going to mention any names in here. I just give them numbers. So EMT number 1, and that number 1 is just the first one.
Right,
Okay, so that individual EMT working 8 hours of overtime per week. That's, in other words, that's all the overtime that they get. Makes $48,672 a year total. And that average, in other words, that's at $18 an hour straight time and $27 an hour for the overtime. You average that, and it's $21.12 an hour. Of all of those, they are the lowest paid employee in the county.
Mhm.
Period, per hour. Per hour on an hourly rate. Okay, we have one employee in the treasurer's office that makes about $1,600 a year less than that. I make about 46,000 for 40 hours. That's 48,672 at 48 hours a week. Okay, so the next lowest paid employee roughly is $22.11 an hour. Again, this is not finding fault. These are just numbers, and these are numbers that Abby ran that I went through. So, and you can pick any of the next lowest paid would be, 2712. In the treasurer's office, 3 of the employees are 2882. These are for 40 hours. And so we've got multiple employees that are over 30. I'm not suggesting that they're overpaid or that there's anything there. I just want to put it in perspective, what we're looking at here. And I want to take the medic, because there's a lot of talk about medic and the fact that a medic can make $81,120 a year working 8 hours a week of overtime.
and they
Okay.
have quite a bit of training.
Well, so
Yes.
Randy,
Yes,
how many years you been doing this?
Just as a paramedic,
Yeah,
23.
23 years as a paramedic. How many years you been doing it in Jefferson County?
Oh, probably 15-ish.
Okay,
Bob Jones,
huh?
Bob Jones, paramedic, 30 years.
He's not, he's 23 years old. Don't give me that crap that
I
he's been doing it for
Yeah.
30 years.
That might be the
But
way I
people need to
got it.
understand you're paying for experience.
My point
Right.
is I just need to, so at $30 an hour, including the 8 hours of overtime per week, because that would be $45, the average per hour for a 23-year medic who happens to be a critical care paramedic is $35.21 an hour. Okay, so we have one rate out at the it doesn't matter where, is $31.28 an hour for 40 hours. So yes, on the surface, when you look at the numbers at first, you think, oh my gosh, we're really over the top. But the reality of the situation is that we're not over the top. And when we start comparing those salaries, they're well within the ballpark, and our EMTs are actually the lowest paid for the number of hours that they work. And I just think that that's important for everybody to know. And also, I ran the numbers, and I'm not going to sit here and tell that I'm 100% accurate on this, but I'm pretty close. So we're looking at varying degrees of county taxes, county budget taxes, however you want to say it, being appropriated by, you know, the different departments, and how much revenue is generated as far as how it pays for their departments. And the ambulance generates about 80% of their revenue or their costs.
When this whole thing gets going with the.
Right,
Yes.
right. When the revenue starts coming in. So,
Hey, Lee.
oh,
We gotta
okay.
take a break.
So
We got a public
that's
hearing.
my,
Thank you,
I
Shannon.
just wanted folks to know, both online and whatnot, that we're not over the top at all.
Right, well, on Friday, we had a budget hearing and there was a lot, or budget, not hearing, a budget,
Can we
just
get
work
back to this,
session.
do a public hearing?
Yeah, we'll come back. Okay, we're gonna go to the agenda at 9 AM. We have a public hearing on fiscal year 2024 budget amendment. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
In a second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, do we have any comments on the budget amendment?
Will this budget amendment be available in the auditor's office?
No,
No.
I'm just kidding.
Of course it will.
Look at me for believing, Lee, oh boy.
Yes, it will
But
be
you thought I
available.
was
Any
serious.
comments about the budget amendment? Do we have any comments? Nobody's on the area. Okay,
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, number 4. Consider budget appropriation by service area. I would love for you to read that.
Okay. At blank AM, it was moved by blank. What's that? Right? Anyway, we'll drop down to the most important part. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors that 2023-2024 fiscal year county budget be amended as follows. Public Safety and Social Services, $6,122,958 to $6,970,148. Excuse me. Debt service from $853,140 to $853,607. Department 1 District Court, excuse me. The amendment does not increase taxes to be collected in the fiscal year. Be it further resolved that the schedule of proposed expenditures by department be appropriated as follows. To the various county departments for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, District Court, $20,000, County Ambulance, $820,190, Department 99 non-departmental, $467,000 for a total of $847,657. The vote upon the final adoption of the amendment as follows.
Okay, do we have any motion on this?
So moved. To
Second.
Motion second, do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Here, Connor.
Oh, that's my water bottle. I don't think what happened.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I tried to sell.
All right. And then consider departmental budget appropriation.
I think we just did that.
Okay. And again, this is available in the auditor's office, should anybody want to comment. Copy. All right. We can go back to our agenda.
Multi-hazard,
Okay,
multi-jurisdiction.
you know, I'm not sure. Do you want to talk anymore?
Do you guys need any more information? I
No,
mean, I'll be more glad to.
Probably as soon as you leave.
It's going to create
we understand
a
that.
lot of issues. I mean,
We had a lot of concern, as you're well aware, based about overtime, and it's really helpful to understand it's 8 hours a week on average.
I mean, we do as much as we can to cut the hours. Like I said, it takes me weeks, probably 2 weeks at a time, 2 weeks to do 4 weeks of scheduling just to make sure.
And we
We're
know
not doing overtime.
we have outstanding care out there when you appreciate that in the field. We really do.
And I look at it like this, how much is your life worth?
Well, and excellent point.
My life.
I
The
mean,
Chris who stepped out, comes from Michigan. That paramedic traveled all the way down here from Michigan.
And works in
Service
Peoria
Canada.
as well.
And he's in Peoria as well.
Says he
Sarah?
likes us.
and we
sorry,
appreciate,
what?
we
Says he
appreciate.
likes us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's the one that would like to do the contract thing that we had talked
Yeah.
about
Oh.
before. And, going to a 24/16 rotation, those people that are coming to help do that, to help alleviate some extra overtime. Chris wasn't here this week to help out. There would be 48 hours of overtime that would need to be covered besides what Brian and I already do. So people would be getting more overtime on the medic side right now. They're not gonna come just for 16-hour shifts or.
And I know also there's a
48
bigger
shifts.
concern beyond any, what you can work on is getting the revenue coming in,
Yeah.
because as Lee pointed out, we'll have some significant revenue when we get through this, getting
And it's coming
everything
in.
set
I
up.
think our bank
Yeah.
accounts went up to like 30,000 or something in the last couple days. I
It's
don't know.
17,000.
So the other concern that was voiced on Friday is just the general cost to the county for the service, and that's something this board has to wrestle with, and we'll work through that. We wanted to get some data, and we've got the hospital levy for now, and we'll be working on it. We wanna go
And
for
we
a
are
vote.
talking about potentially doing emergency services levy.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. But I want to point out to Sarah. Sarah comes up with Lee County. She is also a traveling medic. And I've known Sarah for 10 years.
Yeah, about that.
I'm sorry about that.
I know, okay. And she still comes up here. And that speaks volumes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I left here, went back to Lee County to work and then left. I dropped everything to come back up here to work because this is my EMS home.
Yeah. You know,
So,
Thank you.
on a personal note, we're looking at everybody's money. Every department, don't feel single.
I just don't want to lose what we've got started.
I know.
It took a lot
Understand
to
that.
get this up and going. We're 3 months, 4 months into this.
Yeah.
It's very hard to figure budget. I have no clue what it costs to run an ambulance service, I
We're all
don't.
learning as we go.
We're doing the best we can. Everybody is,
Bob Jones comes from Louisa County.
Mhm.
And despite how. old
Thank
he
you
looks,
for
He came out
still
of
working.
retirement to come back, just so you know.
Yeah.
To come to be with me.
Because she is.
I know. Thank you.
I
for
think
being
another
here.
thing you guys need to understand is that Judy talks about needing 6 to 8 more paramedics.
Right.
They're not out.
Everybody around us is starving for paramedics.
We're grateful we have a full staff.
You are lucky you have a
Mhm.
full staff. Very lucky.
And we all get
understand.
along. Most of it. So I'm gonna pick on the old man all the time.
Yeah. well,
Surely not.
Okay, so yes, for those concerned about the overall effect on the county budget, we continue to work through that and. No, thank you.
I mean, feel free to come out and I'll let y'all sit right next to me and watch me work the schedule to make sure people know. I'm telling you, it's time consuming. It takes days to do it. I'm on the phone with people like Chris and Alex and Martha and everything, you know, just to make sure that we're not doing this overtime. My full-time people like Randy and Sarah, their schedule juggles every week to week. They don't have the same days. People would love it, but they are willing to do whatever it takes to alleviate the overtime.
Right,
So it's not costing.
and we appreciate that.
They've done this for how many years with me? A lot. So
My whole career.
this isn't my, first go around with making sure that I'm juggling people's days around full timers and they're very flexible. You're a traveler, you're a medic.
Yeah, everybody's flexible on that.
Yes. Oh, it's Dee. Hi, Dee.
Hello, how are you?
All right, thank you, and,
You look better today.
Who's talking?
Oh,
Damien
I
just
can't
jumped
see
on.
you. That's why.
Thanks, Judy.
I'm in on
Good luck,
Zoom.
Getting all those numbers together for
There's
the
a
billing.
button, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
What?
all right,
There's a kick
let's
button
just,
on Zoom, right?
okay to move on, you guys, all right. Discuss and consider 2024
Thank you,
Jefferson
guys.
County multi-jurisdictional
Well, why is
mitigation
it
plan,
county?
that's a mouthful, Brad.
I know.
You know Tammy.
Everybody's leaving now.
Stuff's going on.
I know.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I know. She's a good friend of mine. Shoot.
I remember you talking
Yeah,
about
I
this a while back. Thank you,
You don't know.
okay.
Yeah, she wasn't.
Yeah. Yep. See ya. Take care.
So this is something that we do every so often.
I need somebody to call the phone because I think it's either home or in the truck.
Well,
Yeah, it's actually on a 5-year plan and a person's last updated in 2016. And we're behind. Several reasons for that. Most importantly, it costs money to do. And I'm not gonna sit here and say, but the emergency management budget didn't have any money in it. So this is one of the projects we listed to get done. It is required to be able to apply for certain grants. It is required to have an updated plan in place to be able to, after disaster, to maybe recoup some money like we're working on right now. It's, they can still give us money if there's a presidential disaster and they're gonna look and say, do you have a multi-jurisdictional hazard update? And so we are working with the contractor named Gail Thomas. She's actually lived in Fairfield. She moved to Oklahoma. She's done several projects with FEMA down there. She's working with Henry County, or she just updated Henry County. It's got state approval. She's waiting on federal approval because this plan, once we get it all together, has to go through the approval process with Iowa Homeland Security and also FEMA. You have to have it approved, which is a tedious process. So the reason I'm here today is, the Board of Supervisors need to sign off on the contract if this is going to be multi-jurisdictional countywide hazard mitigation plan. And if you guys want to know more what's involved, that's 100, our last one's 165 pages. And I will tell you that when we shopped this out, I got 3 quotes. One of them was up to $40,000. I didn't want to have an open, an open checkbook. I don't know how you say it. I got another quote out of a company that specializes in these for $34,000. And then Gail came along and talked to our district, and she does a really good job. And we got it for $20,000, which is what I budgeted in my budget this year to get it done. Her timeline says in the contract July 31st, but we need to spend that money before July 1st to get it in the budget year because we haven't budgeted. So this plan involves her and I reaching out to all the cities, all the schools. I don't know if anybody, you were on the last one, right? That was a project, right?
We've done a number of them, and so did Shannon, but Shannon, it used to be federally and state funded, and then it would pass through your office or through the budget, and we get these. And then we had to do what was called in-kind
Contribution.
contributions. So the amount of hours that we put into it helped offset the cost as well.
So basically, the plan in the short definition is, to sustain any, to reduce long-term liabilities to people and properties. So if you look through this, we will be going out to the Pleasant Plains, the city councils, and get their buy-in, and then they do their own jurisdictional hazard, what they're worried about, and then we put it all together and it becomes our countywide plan. So we're better prepared for resources, maybe some equipment. We've talked generators, things like that will be included in the plan. That's a small portion of it, but they go from winter storms, which we just had, all the way to dam failures. And we do have dams that no one really thinks about. We have out of waterworks, we have dams that's covered under this plan to look at those and what we're going to do with that. So that's it, and kind of a small version. I'll be open to any questions or.
Do they take that plan and just update it or start from scratch or how?
No,
what's the
they'll take this
process?
plan and update it, but there's several changes, especially with population. There's historical stuff in here.
Mhm.
There's population of the cities, the county. There's different like ethnic groups, and there's all kinds of information here to help us look at what we might need in the long run, or if something happens. I mean, so we could do it ourselves. There aren't a lot of counties that do it themselves. So we hire a contractor. They get it approved through Homeland Security and FEMA.
And it used to be, so if I'm misspeaking, please say so, but it used to be that we weren't required to have one, but if we didn't have one, we can't get FEMA funding if we have a disaster.
That's exactly right. We're not required to have it. But there's HMP grants, which is a hazard mitigation plan through FEMA, which covers if I wanted to write a grant, which we've not been able to do for long term. Say we want to build tornado shelters out by the creek. If we want to do this, we want to upgrade our sirens, which we did not through that grant. But there's all kinds of projects you could do to that plant that we're not eligible for because it wasn't updated.
Yeah, okay, so you need from us approval?
Yeah, I just need the approval and then the board chair to sign the contract with Gail.
Okay,
And I think I sent that to you. You guys have the contract?
we've got the contract right here.
I make a motion to approve the Jefferson County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan at a total project cost of $20,000, and it states that payments to the contractor for the total project cost will not exceed the proposed amount. The service dates will be February 15th, 2023 through July 31st, 2024, which that a misprint?
No, she put that in just in case it goes a little longer.
Yeah, but I mean, it's February 15th of 24 right now.
Right.
So she started a year ago?
We've had conversations, but until you sign that contract, we officially can't start making our
Okay,
objectives.
but it will be done by July 31st.
Yes. Yep.
I'll second your motion. Okay. We've got a motion, a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Brett. Do you need 2 copies? Or just one?
I just need one.
Should we have a signed copy of it?
Yeah, we don't want to Shannon.
Brett,
Yes.
we'll need a copy for Shannon too.
Okay, we can make a copy of that one. Was that mine? Is that my copy?
You have 2 copies. Thank you. Okay, discuss and consider potential solar farm ordinance.
I don't mean to scare you, but it just, I was thinking Friday. And probably because of the wind turbine ordinance, we don't have anything going on right now, but
Right.
I thought maybe we should discuss at some point, everything doesn't have to be done. I just wanted to throw it out to the board to discuss, because a lot's happening in solar farms as well, and most recently in Loiza County. Can't remember if it was 5 or 8, but it was at least 5,000 acres that was taken for a solar farm and wasn't necessarily good land in terms, of farming. But I was thinking that we probably should get ahead of the curve on this to see what we want to look like, how we want to determine locations or potential locations or whatever. I have no clue where to go with this, but if we do it after, so to speak, somebody comes along and says, oh, hey, we're gonna do this. And then we scramble to try it. So I'm just,
And that's similar to some of the discussions we had about the wind ordinance too,
Right.
trying to get ahead of it. And I know you guys are probably already aware that the city's gonna participate in that pilot program where they're gonna be leasing some of the land out by the airport for a solar array. So, it's coming and maybe more projects
Right.
too down the pipeline. I'm not sure.
and personally for me, and I'll just, so it's on the record, I'm not opposed to solar. But I'm concerned when we're co-opting 5,000 acres of ground.
Yeah.
It bothers me that if we take that kind of ground out of production, there's no replacing it as far as that part of it goes. And it's a catch-22. It's like the wind turbines. It's like Farm Bureau says, irregardless of what the individual Farm Bureau members' thought process may be regarding the wind turbines, they are wholly on board with property rights.
That's right.
And I am too, but by the same token, I also have to be realistic when I'm looking at things. And so I just think it behooves us to get ahead of the curve and have those discussions moving forward.
I've not seen anything, from ISAC on solar farms. There's a lot of wind ordinances.
There are some
Years
best
out.
practices, and guidance out there that I've already seen, but I can do some additional research and see how other counties are approaching it.
And I can reach out if you want me to. I can reach out to Chris Ball of Louisa County
Mm,
because they went through this.
Sure.
Now they've got zoning in Louisa County, so that
Process will be
changes the dynamic.
different, but there'll
Yeah.
be content that'll be
Yeah.
applicable. Okay. Discuss wind energy conversion ordinance. This is a discussion. So Tuesday night, I went to the Dusty Fox wind meeting out at Cider, Bishop and Stevens and Cider House, and it was real interesting. So here's what I know from the notes that I took. Consider that. One of the questions that came up, and I thought it was a good one, and I don't know if we can legally address this in an ordinance, but some of these companies buy and sell several times. It's the nature of that business. So the question was, is there a way to restrict it so a foreign company doesn't purchase a company at some point through the lifetime of the project?
Well, my understanding is that that contract is between the landowner and the company. So, and I imagine that that contract would kind of contemplate like assignees.
But I didn't know, would there be anything we could include in our ordinance? I don't know, I'm just asking. But I thought it was a good question that was asked.
Right.
And I don't think there is an answer.
But we're not entering into a contract. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm thinking out loud, excuse me. We're not entering into a contract with the company itself. Really,
Right.
It's the landowner who has to fulfill all these requirements regarding applications. So I don't know. I can certainly research it.
And one of the,
You bring up a good point, and I appreciate Elizabeth's point too, but I'm wondering, because in our ordinance, there's certain requirements that are set out in terms of mitigation of problems, if the wind turbines go down or are no longer functional. And if it happens to be a foreign entity, how do we, that's what I'm looking for. How do we get that foreign entity, for that matter, any entity, to follow through on the agreement short of going to court? But foreign entities, it's going to cost us a ton. And I'm wondering if there isn't something that we can include in the ordinance that requires approval from us for any assignment on that equipment to some other entity.
That's a good way to look at it.
I don't know.
Once, excuse me, once you give easement on some property, that stays with the deed forever, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I guess I don't understand then what would happen. Let's say that a domestically owned company sold to a foreign corporation. You required approval and there's already a contract in place between that company and the landowner. Then that would be tortious interference with contract. If then you said, well, no, that can't be assigned to a different entity, and that would be interfering with that contract that the landowner had with the. It's not to say that there isn't some way to address that issue. I guess I'm just saying that.
I just thought it was an interesting
Right.
question.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I
and
think
again,
that
we're
maybe
here to
that's a risk
discuss
you're gonna
things.
take, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you signed a contract with Lisco and then, or was it Lisco or, Natel, and that was assigned to somebody else. I mean, that's the risk that you
Liberty.
take. And the reason
So-
why we have the application process, the decommissioning plan, the road use survey, et cetera, is so
Yeah.
that we protect yourself up front.
So, and I confess I have not, don't necessarily understand all of this, but to the cut to the chase. So I see what you're saying. The contract between the wind energy company and Joe. And Joe gives them an easement and he receives some compensation for that. And everything goes forward. And then the wind energy company says, okay, Susie Drish is going to take that over. Now, obviously, she is still constrained by the regulation or by the ordinance. But and if the homeowner or the property owner agrees to the change in status, and I don't know if they actually have a say in it, but my question then is that I guess where I'm concerned is that when they go south, is it gonna fall on the homeowner or the property owner then to live up to the contents of the ordinance if the company vacates the premises and moves on down the road? I mean, to me, I'm not sure, I'm not casting dispersions on Dusty Fox, okay? But I'm looking at this and I'm just concerned that, and I'll be dead and gone before this ever probably happens, but I'm just concerned that the cost of the county could ultimately end up being enormous in trying to get them, whoever them is, to abide by the agreements if they just walk away and how's Jefferson County going to get a Chinese company to move forward and ever be able to, to afford that?
Well, there are two parts. There's the application process, which kind of assesses some of the initial issues, like doing the road use survey, making sure that they're abiding by the setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. And then afterwards, there's the decommissioning. Now, prior to even approval by the Board of Supervisors, whoever is going to be submitting the application, I don't know if it's the the landowner, or if it's ultimately really going to be the other entity that they're contracting with. They have to provide proof of funding for that decommissioning, and that's part of the ordinance. So I guess in that respect, it's kind of some evidence up front that they have the money and they know how much it's going to be, and it's over 100%. I think the 110%.
So would that,
cost.
I wonder if we used to, when an entity in Jefferson County wanted to, when they had a major subdivision, not a minor, but a major, there's certain requirements over a period of time that they have to develop in that subdivision, paved streets and so on and so forth. And we had them put money in escrow to cover that in the event that it wasn't done by the specific time frame. So in that, where they have to, I mean, they can come in here and say, oh yeah, certainly don't worry about it, I got the money to decommission this. Can we
So right now in section 4,
Section
so the
4.
applicant shall provide a bond or other security
Okay.
acceptable to Jefferson County for an amount of at least 110% of the decommissioning cost as specified in the decommissioning estimate within 30 days. So if you want to be more specific about what kind of security you'd like to see, we can include that
So
language
providing a bond to
here.
Jefferson County, that covers it, I guess.
So would you prefer, because right now it says bond or other security acceptable to Jefferson County, which I guess could be negotiated during the application process, but if you want to specify bond only.
Well, and I just know that a bond is an insurance, and if we're the named insured. So, yeah, and other, I mean,
If
yeah.
you
we
want
can
it in
have-
a trust account, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we have other options, but bond is, we did that we do that with a lot of things. We did it with the ambulance, right?
And now that's only for the decommissioning, and that doesn't
Right.
talk about the cost to restore the roads. That's not considered part of the decommissioning process, but that's a consideration too. If you want to. But there's really no way of assessing or estimating what those costs will be. They only are required to do like a pre-construction survey to see the condition of the
Well-
roads prior to, but
When we were out Farm Bureau though, the other night, there was a gentleman there, was it Jason that brought it up? About a friend that he had in, I think it was Mahaska County, that had 5 or 6 wind turbines on his property, and he thought it was gonna be the cat's meow, and they didn't replace the blades, they just took them off and replaced the bearings, but they tore the roads up every time they came in there. Cause they had these huge cranes that they actually had to assemble,
Yeah,
which, when you think about it, yeah, that makes sense.
and they said at the meeting the other night, lifetime of a turbine's about 30 years, but every 17 to 20 years, they have to redo them.
so, I mean, I think that the ordinance would take into consideration all, because you do a road use survey ahead of time. Now, maybe, Dee, I think you sent me an email regarding Washington County, and they're still trying to figure out some of the nuances of their ordinance, and that road use component might be a part of that we want to address more completely, have a second ordinance or have an additional process outlined.
Hey, Dwayne, I know you're still on, in the County Engineer Association, do you get any information or have any
Yeah.
input on the wind ordinance?
You should be able to write ongoing road maintenance into the bond agreement for the life of the project.
If you find anything in your organization, will you pass it on to us?
Yeah, they should be bonded for pretty much any time they have to go in and do maintenance for the life of the project. They should have to refurbish roads.
Okay,
Do you, Dwayne, would we establish not the criteria, but how do I want to say this? Do we define what the road needs to be put back to? That's a poor way of saying it, but I think you know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, that would be based on the preliminary road survey before they started original construction.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
And between, or if they notify us, give us notice before they're going to come in to do maintenance, we can go do a preliminary maintenance inspection on the road prior to them starting any kind of repairs or maintenance type work. So they don't argue that we let the road go to heck in between them refurbishing it and them maintaining it 15 years down the road.
Yeah.
And we can restrict, and I'm asking this of Elizabeth and you both, Dwayne, but we can restrict when they can actually go down that road. In other words, we obviously have you said it this morning, we've got some work we need to do as a result of the big winter storm and everything. And, we don't want them trucking down that road and leaving 6-foot deep ruts. So,
Yeah, unfortunately, we have very limited embargo
okay.
hours. you know, pretty much March till June and only for, I want to say 90 days.
Okay. All right, so what do we need to do?
Did somewhere, I think we might have discussed this, you and me, but I'm not sure. We needed to add to the ordinance a 1 mile setback from cities.
Yes, I met with the city engineer and city administrator last week after your board meeting. And that they requested that an applicant also get approval from city council if the proposed wind turbine is within 1 mile of the city.
So would that be all the towns around or just the city of Fairfield?
Within 1 mile of the city of Fairfield. For our ordinances, for our subdivision ordinance, they seek approval of subdivisions within a 2 mile radius, just as a point of reference.
Okay.
So. And I have given this ordinance to Dwayne, he's seen it. Obviously Melanie saw it as well. But if there's anybody else that you think you'd like input from, they can continue to circulate it.
Okay.
Well, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. And then I throw monkey wrenches into your work, so I think that.
Please, I think all the monkey wrenches now as opposed to later. Another issue was the application fee that you should discuss. So right now we have it as a like $1,000 flat application fee per application. But I will say that I've seen other ordinances that have a flat application fee, but then an additional like $100 per turbine, depending on the size. So, you know, scaled up depending on the size of the project. Some people just have it per turbine cost. So that's also up to the.
I think we need to make it enough to realize we're not going to update this soon and the costs will keep going up. So Dwayne, have you researched or heard in your world anything on application fees and like permit fees and that kind of thing?
No, I haven't. I'm just on the Service Bureau website now doing some digging on that to see what the other guys are up to.
Okay.
Lynn County just put together kind of a comprehensive solar ordinance. Of course, they have zoning, but they're doing a fairly large facility up by the Dwayne Arnold energy plant. So I'll touch base with Brad Kettles and pick his brain a bit.
Another consideration that I'll just throw out there is that you could have a flat application rate and then it could be like a per turbine cost per resolution. Then you could change it more frequently.
That's a good idea.
You could amend it if you feel like it's important to scale it up or scale it down, whatever.
When you were out there, did they give you any time frame?
Yeah, I want to say 2024 to 2029. And their first real goal for them is to get 10,000 acres, and I think they've got around 6,000. And
So
turbines are 100% voluntarily, so you know the landowner has to want to have them.
So I have a question, and I don't know if that came up while you were out there, but it came up when we were meeting with Farm Bureau, which I thought was a very pertinent question. I believe actually it was Joe that brought it up, but maybe it's something we need to have it. And maybe not, I don't know. But so I put a wind turbine up on Elizabeth's property and I put a wind turbine up on yours and yours is in the middle. Do they have to go across that property for the line? You know, whether it's underground or above ground, or I don't know the answer to that. In other words, how do you, I mean, the wind turbine generating, you gotta, somehow or another, you gotta get it to where you want it to go, right?
Yeah,
Right. I mean, I would imagine, I really.
That's where they were. I think there was a little bit of conversation on that, and that's where they talk like it has to be 100% voluntary, so they'd have to figure out their route. differently of somebody.
Do they just use the lines that are already established via easement? That was after my conversation with Melanie, she made it sound like up until now, the transmission lines were not available for wind or solar to the extent that they needed to be in order to be more widespread throughout the county. So I'm wondering if now those lines exist via easement on properties as.
Yeah, I said, and I don't have.
I think the rep will show up, he shows up, that would be a question for us
For Jared.
to ask him when he comes sometime.
Well, and
Sure.
maybe we need to get in here sooner than later, because my question is whether or not, and maybe it's already in here, it says feeder lines shall be any power line that carries electrical power from one or more wind turbines. So I guess technically it's defined in here already, more than technically it is defined. But, because then the question I had was, if it goes underground and they can't go across Joe's property, do they have to go across our road and then back across our road to get around Joe's property?
Yeah.
I don't know.
My question was, if they've got one on each side of me, do they force eminent domain to cross me with an underground line?
And
That'll be a
I
question
don't know.
for
I mean,
the rep.
they use that. Abuse it all the time. That was my
I
concern.
agree.
Mhm.
And this board, not this board, not, because I wasn't here, although I agree 150%, the previous board emphatically and categorically said no to
Use of
eminent domain.
Yeah, and they said there would be no eminent domain, everything was for nature.
Well, like I said, I think Elizabeth has done a phenomenal job. It's just that I keep.
So what's our process timeline, Elizabeth? Do we just keep kind of gradually working through this, bringing?
If you want a specific deadline, there are some questions that obviously came up today that I'd like to research, but if we want a more thorough, I guess, ancillary ordinance that addresses road use, that's something to consider. I think that we could probably address it in the ordinance, but as we discussed and as you brought to my attention, Washington has put a hold on approving their ordinance until they have some other ordinances in place that address some of the, I guess, other agreements like road use.
Dwayne, do you have any comments on our road use ordinance or not?
I think Elizabeth did a really good job on it.
I guess where I'm, and this is not a criticism of anybody. It's because you learn. And we've learned some things through our subdivision ordinance that we thought was a pretty doggone good ordinance regarding a minimum of 1 acre. But then we found out after the fact that you can have a minimum of 1 acre, but now you can put all these mini homes on that minimum of 1 acre and you can, so, I mean, it's a learning process and I'm sure we're gonna have to come back and tweak the ordinance at some point in the future as we learn, but I'm still reminded about what Pat said about, I think sometimes less is more, but then I'm also learning that sometimes we need more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So do we actually,
This is just a discussion.
well, because it says set date and
Yeah.
time for second public hearing, but we could. That
That is for the, that's for the
taxing?
the valuation.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
So we will move forward on set date and time for second public hearing on an ordinance amending Jefferson County Code of Ordinances, adding chapter 940, establishing special valuation of wind energy conversion property.
so Shannon says the 26th would be the earliest.
Okay. Shall we do that?
Yeah. I'll
Do we
make it.
have any others that day, Shannon?
I don't think
I don't think so, because we're just in the previous budget routine, which is now later. February 26th at 9.
Okay,
Motion to hold a public hearing at 9 AM on the 26th.
so move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good work.
Sure.
We appreciate it.
Of course, I'm always available for additional questions or if anything comes up and you want other issues you'd like to search.
Discuss and consider signing Jackson Point annual compliance report with county attorney. How's this going? This has been kind of like
It's,
a maze.
well,
Puzzle.
it's more complicated than it should be. First off, we do need to sign this annual certification. Lee,
Okay.
you are the appropriate signer just because it's not Big Read anymore and you are
Right.
an authorized representative of the limited partnership. I would strongly encourage another meeting of the limited partnership to discuss the loan information that I've received from Iowa Finance Authority,
Okay.
and some loan, some finances that may come due in 2027 and how we want to proceed from there. I have some thoughts on best course forward, but it's probably best discussed at a limited partnership meeting as opposed to a board of supervisor meeting.
So you're gonna be cost the county,
We'd like to avoid that.
right? That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, if there is a divestment from our limited partners, us as the general partner will become the principal owner of this facility. Discussing whether that's a desirable outcome is probably the best point of a meeting of a limited partnership. That would come with it some assumptions of some financial responsibilities. And there's also some loan documentation that was reinitiated not too long ago, and I want to talk about that with the limited partnership. And
So I will send out an email to everybody today and including you and Elizabeth and see what everybody's schedule looks like. And then once we have a meeting, then we come back,
Yeah.
also to the board to apprise them of what's transpired. I can't, there is, to use a legal term, there's a lot of gobbledygook in this.
it may not be a bad idea to sell the county's interest in this and have it become private. After all the, chips fall where they may, that may be the best move going forward, but we want to talk about what that would entail.
Not understanding all of the process and looking at all the paper. I mean, when you get 120 pages from one company that's willing to give you $10,000 to get out of it, red flags and bells go off for me. And again, we've always said, and I agree, we don't want those folks to lose a place to live, but by the same token, I don't know what the number is, but one of the numbers I saw was 800 and some odd $1,000.
Well, and that's the thing I want to talk about with the limited partnership. I looked at the financial history of payments made to it. Our principal seems to be going up.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's not what it should be doing, so.
Right. Okay, so I will get everybody and we'll get them together and go from there.
Thanks for your work on this.
Absolutely.
I know it's a maze.
So you've got this signed, and I will get this, today is the 12th.
12.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, make committee reports.
Or it's just.
Well, this is actually being signed on the part of the Jackson Point Limited Partnership, so it's really, I don't think the board needs to.
Just for the board's signature.
Yeah.
Do you have any last week, Susie?
No, I didn't.
Anything?
Nope, unless you want to hear about my doctor's appointment on last Wednesday or.
No, but
Stay tuned though.
I had a bunch. So Monday, Chauncey, were you at that contract meeting? No.
The hospital ambulance.
And yeah, Chauncey and I met and Brian with the hospital. We finally got the transfer agreement done. So we're grateful for that. Tuesday was DCAT, and there was actually Cassidy Patton, who's a CETA, who's employed by opioid state money, gave a presentation she has several presentations available on opioids, so she gave one of those. In the afternoon, Elizabeth and I, we've been trying to figure out just some initial, lay some groundwork with the schools on, because at every meeting I go to and ask for opioid input on process or anything, somebody always brings up schools. And so I know it's hard to get them at meetings because I know you've had some trouble getting them there. So we met with John Grunwald, and he brought a high school nurse just to learn some of the issues and what they're finding. And I think the biggest thing we probably learned is that to start internally with the schools, the kids, that takes more of a school board approval to do anything with them. And we have a pretty new school board, so now it was just good to understand their processes. And they do have a gentleman from 4 Oaks that works in the schools.
Augustine Harvest.
Yeah, and deals a lot with the homeless population. So that was good to learn about. So we'll wait and see. Let's see, then I went to the ISAC meeting, and did you read your ISAC magazine yet? It's all unfunded mandates. And that's what County Day at the Capitol is going to be on, unfunded mandates to counties. So yes, ISAC is working on that. As you know, it's not as easy said and done.
I would go to that, but Senator Dickey probably would have me arrested and escorted out of the Capitol.
Then you should definitely go.
Then you should, I want to see that.
Wait a minute.
I don't think he would do that.
I don't think he has that authority.
Do what?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't have that authority.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they're working on a lot of those things. They understand all those issues.
The big push for the unfunded mandate came from the public health affiliate legislative committee with the expense of TB and the expense of that costs counties.
What is that expense? Do you know?
Yeah, if you have somebody under quarantine and isolation, by the Board of Health and the county attorney, and that individual not working, then the Board of Health is responsible to pay their rent and their food, in addition to their medications. And it has happened in 2 counties.
How long of a quarantine is it?
It just depends how long they're symptomatic and if they're compliant with their DOT meds, if more than one household member becomes symptomatic or ill with pulmonary TB. Yeah, there you go.
We'll add it to our list then.
Thank you. I just wanted to fill that in. It's a big expense for county public health departments, which means the county.
We just need to get a wind turbine on their tires so that they.
It is all about ventilation. Sorry, I just wanted to give you that.
No, that's good to know.
Yeah.
They did talk about, again, a lot of this is legislative update, and it's first coming this week. So basically stay tuned and see what surfaces after this week. But ISAC's working on juvenile detention as far as to getting the state to pay their fair share, because as we all know, they haven't.
Okay.
Also Medicaid funding in the jails to at least have the state have a waiver for that. So they're working on that, because I know that.
Say that again now.
To get a Medicaid waiver so that people can be covered in jails by Medicaid, so it doesn't fall to the county, which it does now.
After 30 days, they lose their Medicaid coverage.
So they're working on that. Kelly Garcia spoke to us. She really didn't have anything new. She wanted feedback on the new redesign and everything, and the latest is they're gonna, behavioral health will be mental health and substance abuse, and I think we've all, heard that, so.
I got a report on that too.
Yeah, so that's kind of the short version with that. But what was interesting, and there were some county supervisors pushing back with her on nursing homes, because apparently a lot of nursing homes in some communities are closing because of the lack of funding in Medicaid. And that wasn't why she was there, but that's what she was hearing. So it was just interested to see how that, one community up north had 2 closing their towns. So the concern then about those residents, of course. And Director Garcia was saying Iowa was one of the highest institutionalized state, and I think what she meant there, we all know it's not mental health institutional because we don't have that as much. But she was considering nursing home and that, and so more, at home and how to beef up the at-home, in-home care system. There's some forest reserve bill that would, and again, none of these are final, they're in talk, would allow the supervisors to allow that or not. And at the booth was our workman comp rep, and she said our workman comp rep is going to go down a lot, and I said, well, that's good because our property liability went up, and of course she's aware of that. So she had sent Joe the information, so we should get a report, but thanks to all the hard work that everybody's done for the last 10 years, our mod has done really well, she said, so. I think, and then the other one I found interesting, the property tax. So House File 718, they don't anticipate any major changes this year. Of course, they don't have a crystal ball either. It sounds like the state's working more on income tax this year, so we'll wait and see where that goes. And Dwayne, there was some talk on road use tax fund. Something about if you already get your lost funds, it might not be good for your road use tax fund, but they didn't go into it in depth that I got enough information. So if you hear anything on that, keep us updated.
They were making noise about, I think you guys are aware, but the state taking over the lost funds. And then there was also, I thought I sent you guys an email about notification I got from the Service Bureau about a law they added in the code last year that they started crunching numbers on, and the way they're reducing your rural taxing authority is, well, 5 years out from now is going to make it impossible for you to meet the state mandated minimum participation in road maintenance. I think I sent that to you last week.
Okay.
Yep, 100% correct.
Yeah, that's what it was. Thank you for the clarification.
That'd be something to discuss with our elected officials. I think I also sent that email to Senator Dickey because I have his email, and then my representatives in my home county. So,
okay. Home rule, a lot of talk about in some new bills, counties shall not this and shall not that. Yeah. So stay tuned. We'll see if any of that changes. There's a new bill about water quality projects need to fall under water quality and projects in a watershed. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. And there's, as always, comp board discussions, and we'll wait and see if that goes anywhere. So basically, as usual, there's a lot going on. We'll see what surfaces after this week.
Just real quickly, I'll follow up with something you said. It wasn't an official meeting, but Bruce and I met last week after a meeting with Corey Frank. As part of this HHS, whatever you want to call it.
Realignment.
Realignment, yeah.
Hostile takeover,
So,
merger, whatever.
Yeah. So basically, Russ may be way ahead of the curve. And so in this week's meeting with the Russ board, we're going to encourage Keokuk County and Lee County and Van Buren County to get on board in our environmental health program. Right now, Keokuk County is partnering with Mahaska. Mahaska is taking big steps to try and move. They're talking about moving into Wapello County. And there's been other counties that Corey Frank wanted us to potentially take over. But that being said, if we get all of our 7 counties under the umbrella, then in this realignment with the DNR, we'll be looking really good, and it will allow us to retain as much local control as what we currently have. And we don't know exactly, as you found out up there, we don't know exactly when all of this is going to take place, but we know it's coming in some form or another, and so we're wanting to get all our ducks in a row, get these 7 counties lined up, and then we're willing to take on other counties if Corey Frank wants us to take them on. And but at least if we have our 7 counties under one umbrella, because the state is holding us up right now as a potential example. So I just wanted to, but we'll discuss that in more depth on Wednesday.
Okay, one more thing, the county supervisors, as usual, sponsor at the farm show, which is coming up, March 2nd, I think. So we have with that a booth. So if any department heads want to have a booth, please let me know. You can leave materials. I know last time the sheriff did something with emergency management wants to do anything, but I think it's from 9 to 2-ish. I know last time it was mostly busy in the morning. So. Okay, anything else on committee reports? Otherwise, a lot of claims and approved reports.
I would make a motion to allow claims and approve reports in the amount of $39,209.52.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thanks, everybody.